Good morning, and welcome to Morning Movie News, where it turns out there's a lot of love in Hollywood these days. Or at least that's what some people in Hollywood would like you to believe. Yes, that's the theme of today's episode. I was able to do another theme, and this one not only applies to the three stories of the day, but the viewer question as well. But we're going to start with the most dubious example of love, and that comes from Jennifer Lawrence, who had some surprising things to say to Empire magazine about her role as Mystique. That has certainly been a topic of discussion amongst fans ever since the first trailers for the movie debuted, and it has been the fire has been fueled by every trailer that has been released since then, and also the posters and the standees at the movie theaters. Basically, every time we see blonde Katniss, we're like, what the hell? Maybe Jennifer Lawrence should leave the franchise. And remember, as you might recall, at Comic-Con last year, she had gone around saying that she would come back to the franchise after this installment only if they wrote her a big enough check. But she's changed her tune. So Empire magazine, this is her quote. She said, "I am dying to come back," because she, Fassbender, and McAvoy, their contracts are up for renegotiation after this film. So she said, "I am dying to come back. I love these movies. I love being in them. I love ensemble movies because it's not on anyone's shoulders." And I'm sure she feels that way after Joy kind of crashed and burned at the box office. Certainly not the treatment that she has been used to. So I think that's where the ensemble comment comes in. But I think that the reason that she said this is probably, twofold. One, she has to realize the internet discussions that are going on. And even if she hasn't, I'm sure that Fox's publicity department has brought them to her attention. Or, if they don't want to incur the wrath of JLaw, her publicist or agent's attention and been like, please talk to your client because you're hurting our really important franchise. And so also I think, this is still all the same, one of the twofold. I think that she's aware of the backlash to her comments about equal pay, which I think... Well, I think I can see both sides of the argument. I think perhaps she didn't say it in the best way. And also then, of course, she had that blow up at the Golden Globes backstage with that foreign reporter. And again, I know some people of you will leap to her defense on all these matters, but, nobody likes to have bad buzz about them online, especially if it continues, right? It's not going away, it's multiplying, and I'm sure she does not want that to be the case. So I think she's like, let's try and not, also, what is she going to say when she's asked? She doesn't want to, fuel more hatred. But then the other reason is that might have finally occurred to her, is that an actor, to be really successful, particularly these days in Hollywood, needs a franchise, right? So you can go and make the small movies that she's been making. Well, small. They're not that small, actually, but with David O. Russell. But you need franchises to keep your profile out there, to keep fans interested in your work. I mean, Michael Fassbender understands this. You see a lot. I think that's why so many people are willing to go into comic book movies, because they're like, okay, I'll go in here, I'll get a fan base. And we're seeing a really interesting thing happen where fans like these actors work in the big tentpole movies, and then they go and they check them out in the smaller movies sometimes. But at least, those smaller movies start to get attention because that actor generates, clicks, right? Like, for instance, Ewan McGregor, we're going to talk about him, but he's doing a lot of publicity for the Don Cheadle movie, Miles Ahead, but everyone's just asking him about Beauty and the Beast, Star Wars, and so... while Miles Ahead isn't getting that much publicity, still it gets a little bit of attention for the film, and he becomes a commodity because of his association with those bigger properties. So I think, Hunger Games is over, obviously, and, while Lionsgate wants to resurrect it, it's not going to be with Jennifer Lawrence. So all she really has left is X-Men, unless she's able to find herself another franchise. But this is a really good franchise for her, because as she said, it's an ensemble, it doesn't require too much of a commitment from me, and it doesn't totally rest on my shoulders. So if there's a hiccup, nobody has to directly blame me. Although, people seem to be directly blaming her already, because she's sucking a lot of fun out of the proceedings with her just obvious hatred of the role. So, we'll see. I probably wouldn't renew her contract, especially. Let's see how this. Well, I think it all depends on how this movie does at the box office. I think that's going to be really crucial. If this movie does not do as well as X-Men: Days of Future Past, I don't think anybody's contract would be renewed. And I think that they're going to try and have a fresh start with the X-Men, as I think they should. Based on the success of Deadpool, get some new, fresh talent in there in front of and behind the camera, and also just restart the whole thing because the timeline's just such a chaotic mess at this point. You have one more Wolverine movie to go, and then you'll probably see, I would imagine, a reboot after that. All right, so that's the first story of the day, and I'm curious, do you believe Jennifer Lawrence? Do you want to see her stay? Are you like, yay, everything's fine now? Or are you like, nice try, get out of here? All right, so again, that's the first story of the day. The second story of the day is legitimate love, at least for part of Idris Elba, his voice. And that's from the Disney company, which has really utilized him quite a bit in their animated and stop motion, or not, motion capture. Well, this is actually isn't motion capture. The Jungle Book is just basically computer animated. But they're using him a lot. I guess he was in the sound studio for a short period of time recording, and they were like, he's so good! Quick, get more scripts in front of him. I mean, you really could have probably done 3 for 1, because it's so easy to do voice recording. But I have to say, if anyone who's seen Zootopia knows, he is a fantastic voice when it comes to animation. He was really good as Chief Bogo. But of course, he's Shere Khan in the upcoming Jungle Book movie. But then, and I also like that he uses his British accent in all of his voiceover work, which I also think is hilarious. But it was just announced yesterday that he's in Finding Dory. He's crossed over to Pixar territory, where he and Dominic West are going to kind of take over for the Sharks to some degree from the first movie. Again, kind of giving some credence to the theory that Finding Dory is a little bit perhaps too much like Finding Nemo. We'll see when the movie comes out. But he and Dominic West are going to, from The Affair on Showtime, they are going to voice sea lions, Fluke and Rudder, who were rehabilitated by the Marine Life Institute, where Dory's trying to find her family, and they live outside on the rocks, and they're pretty cool and relaxed until you bother them. So that sounds pretty awesome to me, and I'm excited. I really like seeing Idris Elba get the opportunity to do so much comedy. It's interesting because Benedict Cumberbatch, another British television star turned potentially movie star, both interestingly are struggling in their transition periods, but he was fantastic in his voice work on Penguins of Madagascar and allowed him to do some comedy. Both, I'd say, Idris Elba and Benedict Cumberbatch are fantastic comedians, and I would love to see them get some live-action comedic work. Heck, I'd just like to see Idris Elba get more live-action work. He has that movie coming up, where he's a police officer with Rob Stark. I think that looks pretty good. We'll see how it does at the box office. And then, of course, he's thankfully in the Dark Tower film from Stephen King that's upcoming as well. That's his really big shot. And he wears a Scooby-Doo mask in the upcoming Star Trek Beyond movie, but, good luck. That's basically another voiceover role. So I'm very happy for Idris Elba. I'm glad, whatever puts him on people's radars is fantastic. But I hope that people eventually say, you know what? Why don't we show your face? I think that would be great. All right, it's interesting. Lupita Nyong'o is having a similar problem. Lots of work, not a lot of facial work. And it's sad and unfortunate that they both happen to be black actors. All right, so that's the second story of the day. I'm glad Disney's showing Idris Elba some love. I hope they continue to show him more love and maybe eventually some live action love. All right, so the third story, back to Ewan McGregor, as I promised. Ewan McGregor is talking about the Miles Ahead movie. And of course, he was asked about Star Wars. And he was asked if he would like to do an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie, which I think we'd all like to see. I think when you look back at the prequels, everyone can agree that Ewan McGregor was a real highlight, if not the best part of those films. Although I appreciate, their originality to some degree when compared to The Force Awakens. Although clearly The Force Awakens is a far better movie. But anyway, Ewan McGregor, fantastic in those films. And he really got the short end of the stick in that he was stuck in a prequel trilogy that is so lampooned. But I think, again, to the strength of his performance, he has never been lampooned for his work there. It almost killed Natalie Portman's career. I feel to some degree it kind of still, hangs over it as a dark cloud. But anyway, he's doing okay. More than okay. I really like Ewan McGregor. I think he has aged fantastically as an actor. I just really think he's phenomenal. And so he has said, he had provided his voice for that when Rey touches Luke Skywalker's lightsaber, you can hear the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi, and they like looped him in there, and they did like a whole bunch of sound effects, but Ewan McGregor's in the mix. But anyway, they said, would you like to do an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie? And he said he would. But then they said, have you talked to Kathleen Kennedy about it? And he said, I can't disclose that, which is pretty exciting, because if he can't disclose it, that means he probably did. And so maybe it is on the table there. They're probably waiting. I don't know how much longer they can wait, although Ewan McGregor, while I think he's maturing wonderfully, he's actually aging quite well. So he has, I think, a lot of time. And look at Harrison Ford. He's going to be Indiana Jones close to 80. So as long as Ewan McGregor is still alive, they can make him an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie with him. And they can always make an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie with someone else, as they're clearly showing with Han Solo, that these roles have to transcend the actors who originated them. And Obi-Wan Kenobi did already, because Alec Guinness, of course, was the first one. And he did not want to make an Obi-Wan Kenobi solo movie, which is quite unfortunate. But anyway, Ewan McGregor loves being part of Star Wars, and I think that's clearly on the table. So let's hope that the Star Wars standalone stories do well, the Star Wars stories. I think Rogue One, I'm very curious to see how that comes along. I think that they have, with the Han Solo movie, it's Phil Lord and Chris Miller, so that's in fantastic hands. Let's hope that, Taron Egerton has said he hasn't been approached. Who knows if, why he would say that, but the trades report that he has. So a lot of, we won't know for sure. Everybody thought Gugu Mbatha Raw was in Star Wars Episode 8, but she's not. So we'll see what happens. But I'm glad that this is on the table, and I would rather have an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie actually sooner rather than later. I would actually rather have an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie before a young Han Solo movie, quite frankly, because Ewan McGregor's already played the role, and I think there's a real connection with him in the audience. So we'll see what happens. But I'm curious, what do you think? Do you want an Obi-Wan Kenobi movie? Where would you put it in terms of priorities for you as a Star Wars fan and for the Star Wars franchise itself from a business perspective? And what do you think of Ewan McGregor having to answer all these questions about other movies when he's promoting Don Cheadle's Miles Ahead? All right, so those are the three stories of the day. And the viewer question comes from frequent BTT viewer and commentator Alex Meyer. And he asked me a question about a movie that Harvey Weinstein is making. And so how does this factor into the love? Well, Harvey Weinstein loves foreign film. He loves to not only, discover it, but he also loves to remake it. And he's remaking The Untouchables, which, of course, from a couple of years ago was a really famous French comedy. It made $416 million worldwide. That's how big a deal it was. And it did hardly any business in the U.S., though, because the Weinstein Company snatched it up and then promptly killed it with the American audience because they had every intention of remaking it. But Omar Sy, he's the reason you saw, Chris Pratt's partner with the Velociraptors in Jurassic World. He's from The Untouchables. That put him on the map. I believe he was the first black actor to ever win a César Award in France, their equivalent of the Oscar. And that's why you've been seeing him around a lot, because Hollywood was like, hey, this guy. But his English does not seem to have been so good up until now, and he just hasn't really gotten a good role. And I don't know if his window of opportunity has closed. But anyway, we'll see. But The Untouchables, they're going to remake it, and it's finally coming together. They have Paul Feig scripting, of course, Melissa McCarthy's frequent partner, working with some male talent for once. And then Simon Curtis, though, Paul Feig will not direct. Simon Curtis will direct, and he directed, he's a Weinstein guy. He directed My Week with Marilyn, which got some awards buzz for oh my goodness, Michelle Williams, Heath Ledger's ex-wife. I'm very sorry about what happened to her, but it always has bothered me that Michelle Williams really used his death to try and further her own career, saying, oh, I'm his grieving widow. And it's like, you guys were like separated / divorced when he died, and you weren't living together, and he actually had another girlfriend. So I thought that was kind of like inappropriate on her part. And I still am a little upset about it. But anyway, Simon Curtis directed that movie, but also Woman in Gold, which came out last year, was Helen Mirren and Ryan Reynolds, which was a perfectly fine, entertaining film, but of course it didn't have any really awards potential because it wasn't that good. It was like a really good HBO movie. You should actually check it out if you're looking for something to watch. Woman in Gold is worth your time as a rental. But anyway, he's going to direct the movie, so already I think it's got some points against it in the Oscars race. But then listen to this cast. So Alex Meyer, let me tell you the question that Alex Meyer, he wanted me to talk about this. So he said, on Morning Movie News tomorrow, can you discuss the Untouchables remake that will be made starring, get this, Bryan Cranston and Kevin Hart, as well as the behind-the-scenes team, Simon Curtis and Paul Feig. I'm just wondering if you think that with this team it'll be a remake that can be done well and maybe get the kind of Oscar recognition that the French original could not. Thank you. Multiple smiley faces. Well, Alex, the reason the first one didn't get any Oscar contention is because the Weinstein Company didn't promote it. They killed it here in the United States, both audience-wise and awards-wise, because they wanted to succeed with an American version, their version. So it never really had a chance in either of those categories. So beware of the Weinsteins acquiring your film. But look how well it did, 416 million worldwide. Nobody over at the Untouchables team is sad. So anyway, I think that this seems like really bad, quite frankly, and it's shocking how this has come together. Now, of course, it could always change, but nobody here, Paul Feig got a lot of love from the Golden Globes this year, but that's about it. But I don't really see, Bridesmaids got some Oscar recognition, as you might recall. But anyway, that was very much Judd Apatow's doing, perhaps. But I'm just like, this just seems like, it seems actually, quite frankly, like the type of movie Bryan Cranston is perhaps making a little bit too much these days. And his involvement, I think, sways the whole thing in that direction. Like, Trumbo, great movie, lots of awards contention, huge number of nominations. But really, how many times can he get away with that, right? Trumbo, that's definitely worth your time. You should definitely watch Trumbo. But Trumbo seemed a little bit like a TV movie. It transcended that because it was just so darn good. But Bryan Cranston just keeps making this type of movie. He has another movie coming up with Pablo Escobar, which is too much like Narcos over on Netflix. You're like, what? So it's crazy. And also Tom Cruise is making a Pablo Escobar movie, which is going to come out, around the same time. But anyway, I think that Bryan Cranston, the real crux of this story to me is, what the heck is Bryan Cranston doing with his career, right? Like, it's just ridiculous. I talked about it when J.K. Simmons landed the Commissioner Gordon role in Justice League. It's like, Cranston, come on, be serious. He's making this HBO LBJ movie, and I just don't know what he's doing. I guess he's just satisfying himself creatively as an actor and an artist, which is fine, but it's just so crazy to watch someone throw away such an incredible fan base coming out of Breaking Bad. So I'm glad that Bryan Cranston is able to do whatever he wants to do, but just like Jennifer Lawrence is realizing, you need that franchise to keep people's interest in you alive. So eventually the Breaking Bad love is going to dissipate just from the passage of time, and his numbers will go down, interest in him will go down, and he won't get any more work. He won't be able to do these kind of crazy movies that he likes to do. Just like Kevin Spacey is helped immensely by the House of Cards series that he created. He really helped his career there, and that's now his new engine. So Bryan Cranston, I guess, needs an engine, and without one, he's dragging every project he's involved with down. So, and I think it includes this Untouchables. And Kevin Hart, I hope Kevin Hart can act. That's what this movie is going to require. So maybe this will be like his Jim Carrey moment where he proves that there's more to him than his jokes. But so far, I have not seen it. So we'll see. I think this sounds very much like a television movie or an HBO movie. And I think that it's shocking how poorly it's come together as a remake, and I'm shocked at what Bryan Cranston continues to do with his career. So I'm curious, what do you think of that? The three stories of the day? Be sure to share your thoughts down below. Do you love all of them? Also, your thoughts on Alex Meyer's viewer question. Anything you'd like to see covered tomorrow, and any questions, of course, that you might have. Thanks for watching. Bye.